So welcome everyone on our 99th author interaction under Trends Literature series. I have with me a very, very special guest, Arjun Singh Kadian. He's been in fact on our platform earlier in our 92nd episode. And I must say, a lot of people did tell me to please invite him again for his book, Land of the Gods, the story of Haryana, which is really making a lot of waves. Yes, in fact, I have two of them. One of them is a quiz giveaway. So anyone who answers my question correctly gets this wonderful book, and the rest can order on the Amazon link that we'll be also putting it on the chat. So Arjun is a best-selling author. He is also an academic and policy professional. He's in fact a trained geologist, and he's also an alumnus of ORF and Site Stiftung. He's been involved in projects like Indic Academy and Rath Foundation, and has initiated the Haryana Thinkers Forum. He's been talking about Haryana whenever he gets a chance. So it's not surprising that finally he's written a book. So who better than him writing this book? So welcome, Arjun, on our platform. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thrilled to be here in the 99th interaction. I mean, I have to say, there are many people who do podcasts or something on their platform, but there are very rare people who actually stick to the agenda, stick to the fact that they are discussing books. And well, your 99th, 99 episodes into it is a great deal, and for authors as well as for people who love books, it's a great way to just bring all of them together. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much for such kind words. This is what really keeps us going and motivated, and really all the best for your book. Arjun, to start with, I must say, and I've been, also watching a lot of your interviews and reading about the book. This book definitely has broken a lot of stereotypes, and definitely about Haryana. We know all that it's been known to be the land of Khap Panchayats, about the gender ratio, about gender issues. So, but what was the motivation in writing this book? I know you've been talking about Haryana. You are a proud Haryanavi, and but why do you think the book should be really read by everyone?
Well, to begin with, I remember earlier in the day when I was researching the book, I've been talking about Haryana for a long time. The motivation has been uh, very old, because I was fairly young when I thought that I would work on something in Haryana or work for Haryana. This is the region I come from. So the motivation was there from as old as when I began my teens. So, and that motivation found avenues in different things. So I prepared for civil services as well. The motivation was to work for Haryana. I, cleared other government examinations because I wanted to work for Haryana. And the choice of not going abroad or settling abroad also finds a motivation there. And the reason behind some of that,
Could you
of
be a
course,
little louder? A little louder.
yes.
Yes.
And the reason for all of that, of course, is the fact that the family where I come from, essentially the motivation has been that some way or the other give back to the society, or some way or the other give back to the region that you come from. So in the earlier days, of course, it was that, and that has been going on for a long time. I remember when I was during my graduation days at Delhi University. I was a student at Hansraj College. um, there were many stereotypes, or many those kind of remarks onto, because you hailed from Haryana and things. There are gen stereotypes, and there are stereotypes about multiple places across India. And then through media also, you kind of see that there's only one side of impression, or one impression that you get about. If you were reading about newspapers or national newspapers or media in the early 2000s, you'd be surprised, or you'd be the impression that you'd get of Haryana is where women are subjected to a lot of things, and so on and so
Right.
forth. And no matter, I mean, it's taken significant effort that we moved on from that. I'm not denying that there's no smoke without fire, of course. But there is a certain stereotype that was established for a long time, which needed to be broken. I happened to be motivated about it. I wanted to do something about it. And my reason for writing the book became actually because I was the one who was looking for answers And since I was trying to find more and more answers and I was not able to get any, this is where I found myself that, go through research, go through documents, go through archival records, go through government documents. And at the end of the day, it turned out it became a book. So yes, that's been how I, was motivated to write the book. But of course, there are, as you posed the question, there are, apart from the stereotypes, because the book is from 17th to 21st century. I do touch upon the stereotypes and counter them as well. But then there's of course more to it, and yeah, that we'll discuss probably during the course of discussion here.
So right, and I must say that, and I must tell everyone who watches recording later, and also people who are present here, that this book definitely is quite simply written. It's not like a history book or something. You can read it. It is put downable. It's got around 8-9 chapters that you would like to go through and find out so much more about Haryana. And all of us, I mean, I am from Haryana, and there are so many others who are present today. It's a proud moment. I like to go through such books to know and feel proud of where you are. And it's definitely well researched. So what was the inspiration, first of all? And I know you've been talking about it, that there are a lot of people who kind of really helped you in writing this book. And especially when you really see the comments all over, even on the book, on the back side, you have people like Shashi Tharoor commenting on it, Sanjeev Sanyal, you have Samir Saran, you have Shekhar Gupta writing about it. So all these people have really backed the book and have been giving such beautiful comments. So how have they really helped you in how have they been instrumental?
So I'm genuinely grateful to all of these people who helped me in some time or the other during the research of the book, giving their ideas, giving their impressions of the state. In fact, there are many other people, but these people, of course, have given a blurb for the book. Sanjeev sir, of course, his support has been unmatchable. Then, of course, Jay Panda sir. All these people, they are ones who, I mean, I've been in the writing circle, or I've been writing articles about Haryana, I believe, since 2014. And like you said in the introduction, I've been speaking about the region for a long time. And it just became natural that I write a book. But writing is a different sort of an exercise. I mean, speaking about a state or speaking about a region, speaking about it was at 5, 10, 15 minutes. It does its job. Present your views, and that's done away with. But in contrast, a book is something which at least you when you're consciously working on the book, you know that it's going to stay for a long time. It has a longer shelf life. It's not like a video which is becomes viral and tomorrow morning there's Neeraj Chopra became breaking another world record, or breaking the national record. So books essentially have a longer shelf life, and that is the reason why it's a different challenge. And in contrast to fiction books are supposed to just, they weave a magical world, they weave something that just they take you in. Non-fiction is full of data, full of information, factual information, history, culture, which might not intrigue everybody, and hence it becomes another tricky thing, how to present all that information in a way that the reader enjoys it like a story. So I had to take motivation from different people, and Sanjeev said his book has been incredible, Land of Seven Rivers. Then of course The Ocean of Churn. Vikram Sampath has been of great help. Vikram Sampath has actually, through his work and through these conversations, has really helped me. Through 2014, there are many people that I can, give credit to, who have actually helped me make that, build that mind frame to work on the book. So yes, these people, and of course many others who have helped in the process. Another thing that works very well is, when you're writing a book, apart from the requisite motivation to work on the subject, challenge is to structure it properly. Challenge is to frame the time space. Challenge is to ensure that there's a good flow. All of those things, one, come if you're writing rigorously. Two, of course, is you sort of need mentors. You sort of need people who have written and have gone through the grind, as I put it. And once anybody has gone through that, he is fairly in a position to guide the next person forth. So all those tips essentially help. Shekhar Gupta ji is he's a Haryanvi, by the way, uh, who has worked, reported, and has his own experiences of the state. So his insights were incredibly powerful, important. Then Samir Saran, also Samir Saran's family uh, has connections with Haryana. So of course, all of these things help. But then because it's my first book and because it was on Haryana, that even publishers for that matter would think about it more than once. I happened to do a range of interviews. I wanted to be sure that whatever I'm saying does some sort of justice to every reader, every person who wants to understand Haryana. Because the book's target audience is not just Haryana or Haryanvis, it's target Indian audiences, Indians and Indians across the world who want to understand this region and state. And interesting thing is, I happen to write much more. My first draft was around 1,40,000 words, between 125 to 150. But then I had to chop down a lot of stuff in order to just ensure that people, say somebody from Pondicherry wants to know about Haryana. For that person, essentially, it should not be a challenge. And in fact, I did send to somebody from Pondicherry and somebody from Bangalore to read the book first before I sent it out to the publisher. So yes.
Fantastic. And I would say that it has a different perspective altogether, especially when you flip open the book and you see the title and you see Land of Gods. You've brought this out. I mean, everybody knew that Bhagavad Gita has been written here. That has been I would say, Lord Krishna has written Bhagavad Gita here on the land of Haryana. But to bring it out in focus and make people think that, yes, we're talking about land of gods, land of Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata, to the modern day Gurgaon, you've covered it all. So is it really a lot of miles before Haryana sleeps, or it carries the narrative further? I mean, why Land of Gods, and why did this perspective hit you to capture that and get people's mind into it? What was your reason for that, picking up this topic?
I remember when the book was launched, there was some person who happened to question me something similar, and he rather applauded that how it's sort of a turning the table. And actually that was the mindset, because see what happens is many people know, and we kind of take it very casually, that Bhagavad Gita was recited or the sermon was delivered in Kurukshetra. Everybody knows it, everybody's fairly casual about it. Saraswati River, many people know it. There are a few deniers, naysayers as well. But the point is, we do know that the fundamental bedrock of this civilization, that our Indic civilization is, or Bharatvarsh is, that is the Vedas. And Vedas are the founding tenets of the Sanatana Dharma. And the Vedas were written on this land. The Vedas were written on the banks of Saraswati River. Similarly, the battle of right versus wrong, or dharma versus adharma, Mahabharata was fought here. This is where Bhagavad Gita was, the sermon was delivered. And although there are, lovers and prayers or lovers of Lord Krishna all across this land, there are not many people who actually attach it significantly and firmly to Haryana. Apart from this, what you do recognize and what people generally talk about is they pick Gurgaon story, or they pick contemporary Haryana sports story, or would they pick the women story? They pick, Haryana is a land of iron arms and bare arms. So all these stories essentially became so popular in media that the central tenet of this civilization or this region actually took a back seat. And that is what I wanted to correct with the title Land of the Gods. Another thing, of course, is the fact that if you translate the word, or translate the word understanding Haryana, is Hari plus Ayan, which is abode of Hari, and Hari would be gods, so abode of gods or land of the gods. That is how I thought about it. Of course, I do understand if there's somebody who just comes up and says that India is a land of gods, or essentially the entire land, or this subcontinent is a sacred geography. So yes, of course, I understand that. But yes, there's no point denying the fact that Haryana is where all of this happened, and Haryana is the land of the gods.
So right, I read this, and I like to read for everybody that Sanjeev Sanyal, the economist and the author, he wrote in the foreword that, and I like to quote him, that many readers will not merely read this book with interest, but will keep it as a ready reference on their shelves to understand the deep currents that really shape tomorrow's Haryana. So Arjun, before I move on to Diya with her questions, I like to ask you, how do you foresee Haryana in future? What is your vision of Haryana, so as to say?
So Haryana, where Haryana stands today, there are essentially three things that Haryana needs to mostly focus on. One is incentivizing and improving the state of agriculture. Two, of course, is the fact that other than modernizing agriculture, we must focus on more industry as well. Apart from moving, we must move from, or apart from catapulting the fact that Gurgaon's telecom boom and electronic boom, there are different avenues, warehousing. There's a lot of economic opportunity in Haryana, but the mere fact that it borders Delhi from three sides. Then Haryana must focus on women, which I call the she factor. Apart from their health, education, and their gender parity, I think these three things must be focused on fiercely. And with this in mind, I think Haryana has a great future. In fact, I write somewhere in the book that it's going to be the 21st century is Haryana's century. Why I base the fact, the basis of this premise is the fact that in the last century, Haryana was not economically very powerful, or economically it was not well-to-do. For instance, since money was limited, people had limited opportunities, agriculture and land was not monetized. So all those opportunities came in 21st century, where Haryanvis have sat on the borders of Delhi and just reap the maximum benefits. A great advantage of all of this was the fact that the young population in Haryana was fairly focused about improving their lives, fairly focused on, in general, I'm not going into specifics and in terms of numbers, but in general, the Haryana population was fairly focused and stayed away from menace that was raging in the other state, Punjab, for instance, the drug menace. So things like that. So yes, of course, Haryana is going to be the 21st century is Haryana century.
Right, and we look forward to your more vision, and I'll come back to my questions again, and like to invite Diya. She's the co-founder, and she has a couple of very interesting questions with her. In the meantime, Diya, I'd like to ask one question to everybody so that people can start thinking about the answer and get this wonderful book. In which year Haryana was formed as a separate state? So the first person, the fastest finger first, will get the answer. You're free to Google also, because there's no time limit. But yes, the first person will get the answer. Will get the book. Yeah.
Yes. Hello, sir. I would just like to say that I have started reading the book, and it's so fascinating. The fact that I live in Haryana and I had no idea how important a role it played in so many things. So I would first of all like to thank you on writing this book, and I'll get to the questions right away.
Thank you very much. Before you go on, thank you. I hope you enjoy the book. The idea was to put or show how Haryana was central in India's history. Yes.
Yes.
To the questions.
So, politically, you have shown how Haryana as a state played an important role for what was happening in the center. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So, beginning with what was happening in I can write first say in pre-independence and post-independence phase. In the pre-independence phase, for instance, not many people know the fact that the first War of Independence, the 1857 struggle, essentially first started in Haryana in the Ambala cantonment, which was protecting the northern frontiers. And that was a big political event because right after this rebellion or the War of Independence, the British Crown actually took control of the Indian territories. And then, with that, a lot of administrative changes started to happen. And from there on, we see an immense amount of struggle between the ruralites and the urbanites, how the zamindars, how the landowners, how the peasants, a different sort of politics began. And Haryana, although during that phase was part of the greater Punjab province, it had a political cloud as well as political dynamics of its own. Right after independence, Haryana played one tremendous role in what was happening in Delhi. For instance, let me tell you, in the 1960s, because of a lot of taking advantage of what was happening in Delhi, Faridabad boom. A lot of investment was done in via the public sector. Because Haryana was bought in Delhi on three sides, in the political negotiations, the land of Haryana became a good asset. For instance, the Maruti Suzuki project, which Sanjay Gandhi initiated, there's a reason why it came to Gurgaon. Although land was first given in Faridabad, then land was offered in Sonipat, but Gurgaon became a favorable choice. As a consequence of that, Bansi Lal, who was then the chief minister, or during that phase he had just become the chief minister of Haryana, became very close to the coterie, the Indira Gandhi coterie. And what happened during the emergency phase, which is probably even rightly so the blot on India's democracy or democratic history, Haryana's jails became home for many political prisoners. Political prisoners from across the northern region were put into jails in Haryana. The reason was because the chief minister was very much part of Indira Gandhi and the Sanjay Gandhi coterie. And they believed that Bansi Lal had no qualms about treating these political prisoners the way the Gandhi family wanted it to. So for the Gandhi family, Haryana became an important region where they could just do whatever they wanted to do. Apart from that, and from there on, Haryana, for everything, and there are the 70s, 80s, 90s politics was very much about the rural-urban divide, or the rural vote bank, or the urban vote bank, and for a large amount of agitations that was happening in Delhi, Haryana used to be offering that crowd. So in the 1980s, you see many rallies wherein it's Tau Devi Lal who brought together a large number of masses in the Delhi Boat Club and so on and so forth. So it's a long history of how even the present Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji played a very active role in revitalizing or giving that initial impetus also to the BJP in Haryana. So all those things, and then interestingly, the rulers, or the chief ministers of Haryana, or the parties ruling Haryana, have more or less been the same or in parallel with what the ruling party in Delhi. So an interesting dynamic, because not many places you see that. So whatever happens in Delhi, our elections also. For instance, 2014 elections were held in May, and the state assembly elections were held in a few months later. Similarly, in 2019, May was our central elections or general elections, and in October we had our assembly elections. So of course there are many other things, but yeah, I hope you get the gist.
Yes. I do get it. Right. That makes sense. I believe I did not know most of that. That is very fascinating, which is why I'm going to continue reading this book. I'm already very invested. So, sir, for many years till recently, Haryana was considered a land of patriarchy, wherein women had little avenues. Has the status of women in Haryanvi society been changing according to you?
Okay, a very tricky question there. I don't want to ask my foot, but let me begin by saying that patriarchy in the society is not just a feature of Haryana. It's a feature of Delhi, it's a feature of Uttar Pradesh, it's a feature in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra,
Anywhere
Rajasthan.
in India, right?
So pointing only patriarchy in Haryana is one little faulty in itself, because there's patriarchy other places also. Another thing what has happened is, and society evolves through these discussions. There used to be an old concept which is dying very swiftly now, thanks to the debating culture that is happening in our news channels, happening on our news channels daily. There used to be Shastrarth. There used to be very fierce debates and discussions between people, and debates and discussions were a regular part of society, regular part of discourse. People who were, wiser lot, they would discuss the challenges anything faces, any social change might face, or what needs to be brought around. All those things were definitely discussed, which are not discussed of late. Haryana also, as a society, and this churn in society keeps on happening, by the way. This question itself is part of that larger churn. There are some, people listening to this, and there are some people who are going to listen to this in the near future. They're going to form their mindset, which will go on further. They'll probably, this idea will, this is how ideas work. People throw them out in the world. Regular conversation on this begins. Sooner or later, a general idea in the world starts forming, and it also constantly keeps on changing. And that change is the fundamental part of nature. Now, this change has been happening for a long time, and it's a great positive and motivating change. There should be more women, there should be gender parity, there should be more women in all aspects of society, economy, industry, so on and so forth. But what has happened in case of Haryana is, because of one that some people might say lazy journalism, only stories which pointed at Haryana's weaknesses, or stories which actually pointed only at those rare instances, or at those instances where women in Haryana had been subjected to something, became news, state news, or even national news. The other positive stories where women were actually, breaking the glass ceilings, did not come onto fore as much. For instance, in the 1950s, for example, J.B. Kriplani's wife, Sucheta Kriplani. Sucheta Kriplani is a Haryanvi. The first, speaker of a legislative assembly is a Haryanvi woman. A very tall, powerful lady was Chandravati, who defeated then the most powerful, man in the state, Bansi Lal. Similarly, Sushma Swaraj, one of the most beloved politicians that India has ever had, is a Haryanvi. Then, of course, you see in media, Juhi Chawla is from Ambala, and there are many other people. And apart from that, one needs to understand that how many avenues, or what were the opportunities and exposure Haryanvi women, and not just women, Haryanvi gentry or Haryanvi society got. There were very limited avenues, limited education, limited exposure, which essentially stalled not just the women, but also the entire society. And in a larger agriculturalist and rural society, these challenges were rather natural. What has happened of late is, through education, great amount of exposure, new opportunities, internet, which is a great, the data democratization has given a large, become a catalyst for this transformation. And this transformation is also happening in corporate Haryana. It's in the corporate Haryana that, men, women from all castes, all different communities are coming together and finding opportunities and better avenues for themselves. So this churn has been happening. The change is very much in the challenges of female pesticide, or disparities in gender sex ratio are all being dealt fiercely and very positively. So yes, this change has been coming in, and I am fairly positive that it's going to be good. Of course, there are challenges. That going to be legal challenges. There are going to be legal challenges. For instance, there are fake cases also reported by women, but that of course is another sidebar.
Right.
The greater or the grander picture is the fact that more and more women are, doing unconventional things. More and more women of Haryana are doing, Manushi Chillar for that example, for that matter. Prior to that, a decade ago, I think Kanishka Dhankar was one who became Miss India. Then we've got many such stories. I mean, in media, in sports, in news channels and anchors, women have been doing wonderfully well, and I think all Haryanvis are very proud of what they're doing.
Right. Mindsets, they've definitely evolved a lot. And like you said, because of the internet, there is a platform, so as to say, through which there is much more awareness. So if anything, that is something that most people won't approve of if that happens. Now, there's awareness about that. There's a way to reach that should not be done. So there are a lot more opportunities now, definitely. A lot of things have changed.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Bindu Tandon in the meantime. She's an author, a best-selling author of Beauty and the Beast. Bindu, will you like to please switch on your video? Yeah. Yes, Bindu.
Mike.
Please unmute yourself. Yes.
Yes.
You're fine, ready to go.
Great. Good evening, all of you, and congratulations, Arjun. Oddly enough, I'm interested in Haryana. So, I'm so glad you've written this book, and I'm interested in three aspects. One is, of course, the sacred geography, and I have a cousin who lives in Kurukshetra. He's a distant cousin. When I asked him the other day, and I met him at Tervi in Punjab, I said, Bhaiya, have you been to Kurukshetra? I mean, have you been to the Sthan, to the battlefield? And what is it like? Is there a sense of the grandiose of the great battle that happened? He said, "Na wahan to kuch nahi haiga. Nothing." He said, "I don't believe this. But you'll have to A, tell us more about it, and B, do something about it. This is not fair." Okay, that's one. Two, I went to the Mansa Devi temple the other day in Chandigarh. And the access route to it, I'm sorry, these are civic matters. But let's face it, just the way the gleaming towers of Gurugram represent something, so do the, backward, the broken roads leading up to a wonderful, historic, pious place like Mansa Devi. I was so saddened. Nice, Chandigarh is great. And then suddenly you come on to Panchkula, right? And there it is, tuta puta, kyun? Sorry, you'll have to answer this. You take the brunt. You write a book, you take the brunt.
Right.
And last, of course, you've got some wonderful wrestlers out there, lovely akharas and things, correct?
Mhm.
I'm really proud of that. And Dia, you'd be surprised, but the number of athletes that come out of Haryana say something, and female athletes, about the strength of the women there. They've been fighting for centuries. Okay, your turn now, Arjun.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for the comments. And well, this is what I opened up with. There's, as you've written, that the cousin of yours was sort of dismissive of that history, which clearly is out there. I mean, there are more people, outside Haryana who probably attach or relate themselves more to it. One thing that has happened, of course, is, and here I think a good example would be making a fine contrast with Delhi and Punjab. Punjab, for that matter, has preserved very fiercely and very, rather violently, its history and its culture. Similar thing is happening in Delhi also. You see many prominent international and national writers and authors are writing about Delhi's history, and they write about it very poetically. William Dalrymple is just one another person who does that, but you see there's a long legacy of historians who are writing about it. One reason why Punjab has been fairly successful in doing that, because in Punjab, the idea of language and the matter of religion is fiercely intertwined. And so it sort of became rather necessity for them to preserve that culture, preserve that language. And so they produced a lot of literature, and this is what literature does. Literature ends up, people pass it on, and then evokes a sense of pride into them for that state or for that region. Similar thing is happening with Delhi also. For longest time we saw, and Delhi is a city which has transformed itself time and again. I mean, a recent example would be the fact that, just in 1947, it was very Mughal or Muslim in, nature. Then it became Punjabi in culture. And then there'll be many people, or a few people at least, who would say that Delhi is becoming more Bihari in culture. So all of this transformation, Delhi, of course, is happening. And at all those times, Delhi was Haryanvi also in the culture, because the fact that 1911 it was Haryanvi, then in 1947 many Haryanvi shifted there. So that Delhi Haryanvi thing keeps on happening. The idea is that Haryana should, rather must, now take its culture with utmost priority. We have been so, in the recent years, and see, like Marx tends to say or directs, that when you're economically powerful, that is when you start looking towards other things, say culture and art and things like that. Haryana never really had that money or that economic clout to think about or prioritize, itself in that direction. But now it does. Haryana is economically in a much better state now, and there are new initiatives in that direction being taken. I do not discount the fact that whenever faced with a challenge of how to preserve a region or a city or this place or the geography that Kurukshetra is, of course the first challenge is the fact, do you want to modernize it, or do you want to in some way or the other preserve what it was or preserve what the state was. For instance, the example is Varanasi for that matter. There are people who think that Varanasi should be modernized, yet there are people who think that this modernization is actually spoiling the the culture or that vibrancy that Varanasi was. Hence, that of course is another challenge which must be dealt by Haryanvis and by Indians in general through this continuous deliberation. Find a solution, and it's quite important, pertinent that Haryanvis take pride in the fact and Haryanvis take it as a priority. Second, of course, is the question on Mansa Devi complex. I know that Haryanvis and residents of Panchkula take fair amount of pride that Mansa Devi complex is this, Mansa Devi complex is that. The Mansa Devi temple and the mandir is so grand. There's also education institution there. But then of course approach roads, and those are governmental challenges, and they have to be dealt with priority. I remember I wrote about this sometime back, how we of course talk about religious places across India. We talk about Dwarka, we talk about the Char Dhams, we talk about Char Dhams of Uttarakhand itself. But it's time we take the religious places of Haryana on priority too. You go to hinterlands. In fact, during the course of research of the book, I happen to travel a lot, and I'll tell you, every village has a fairly grand shrine, very fairly grand temple that villagers have constantly for centuries and centuries preserved it fairly well. The third bit, of course, was on wrestlers, and yes, this puts it back to what I was saying, that in 21st century Haryana has become economically powerful, but prior to that there are 20 centuries in this Christian era, and then another 3,000 years. Haryana for longest time, it's for at least 1,000 years or more than 1,000 years now, Haryana has been a battleground of civilizations. This became the route for people who wanted to come from northwest, people, this invaders, the Mughals, the Delhi Sultanate, the Afghans. Everybody would come on these lands, trample upon them, raise their battles, and whatever happened in Haryana. I find it surprising that many people say that Haryana's economic clout is because of Delhi, forgetting the fact that Haryana's disaster or Haryana's doom was also for Delhi. If it was not for Delhi, if it was not for the protection of the capital, Haryana would not have become a battleground for civilizations. Panipat, Shabad, Karnal, Kurukshetra, Sonipat, Hisar, Fatehabad, Sirsa, you name the place, and there's been some important battle or war that happened. So what essentially happened for these hundreds of years, that is land which was, the land of Indic civilization became a battleground of civilizations. And what does all this rigorous, the rigor of, or this what these battles have done is, one, it made its people who resided on this land and protected these lands fiercely have become very, powerful, physically strong, and all those characteristics that we relate Haryanvis with. It's been a semi-arid land post the drying up of Saraswati drainage basin, but all of this essentially has built its people. And so we have the wrestlers, we have people who are physically strong, and then this idea of protecting your land also develops a fair amount of solid psyche, that motivation to just set your mind to something and pull all your heart and mind into it and just do that. You see example of Neeraj Chopra, you see example of Poddar sisters, you see examples of Sardar Singh, you see examples of Ravi Daya, you see examples of a long list of players. In fact, in 2018, in the Commonwealth Games tally, I believe Haryana if Haryana was a different separate nation, it was probably 7th or 8th in the medals tally. So yes, you see that Haryanis are doing fairly well. I remember during the course of research, I was sitting in the drawing room of some fairly powerful people of the state and of Delhi, political, and one of them made a remark that there's something characteristic about Haryanvis, that एक बार वो कुछ काम करने के लिए मन लगा देते हैं तो एक टेलीपैथी सी हो जाती है पूरी कम्युनिटी के अंदर कि ये करना है, एंड फिर सभी उस काम में लग जाते हैं. So he gave the example of sports, then he added the example of civil services. Haryanvis would never have imagined becoming bureaucrats in the 90s, 80s or 90s. There were rare few. In 2000s, you see that everybody is just, coming up to Mukherjee Nagar or Old Rajendra Nagar, oh, we've become a civil servant. I've been part of that grind as well. So this essentially is the byproduct of a lot of things that has made this culture. Another thing that I'd like to add is, which takes us back to this entire idea, how Haryanvi people essentially, how they became so, is the fact that Charles Metcalfe also in the early 1800s writes that in this region, villages are like little republics. They do not want to be interfered into. They do not want any kind of imposition. You seek a revenue, they'll give you the revenue, but they do not want any kind of intrusion into their daily affairs, which essentially brings us to the fact that they are little republics. And these little republics are in constant fight and defending against each other, and also coming together, defending themselves against a larger force. So this entire war, battle, struggle, the grind for survival has made these people what they are. And essentially, wrestlers is just one fine example. Before wrestling, they would be fairly protecting the farmlands as well, fairly protecting their families as well. So yes, that's probably what I would say.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I'm ordering your book, and I possibly will send you some questions once I have them. It's superb. Thank you. I'm so happy you're proud of your state. That's beautiful. Thank you, Neetaji. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Dia.
Thank you, Bindu. It's entirely a privilege that you graced our platform today. Thank you.
Namaskaram.
Thank you. Yes, Dia.
Now getting back to another question. Other than these stories, what are some other stories, a story that might be brewing up in Haryana that you know of, that not many people know about, but should know about?
So not many people, and I'm going to write about this in my coming book, know that. So you know the business community. We know the Marwadis, we know the Sindhis, we know business communities in southern India. But not many people relate that Agarwal Banyas, a prominent business community across the northern India, are essentially all of them find their origins in Haryana. Agrova is the name of the place, and it is believed that Maharaja Agar Sen had 18 children, and all of those 18 children essentially made one Gotra. So there are 18 Agarwal Banya Gotras, and all of them are doing very well in business and in trading. Apart from that, the new business that is coming up is something that I do want to write about. Then, of course, like I said, the vision for the state of where the state is headed, how this Shri factor must be included. Another story that is happening right now is what, as a product of data democratization, how, as a consequence of internet and better technologies and new applications, how Haryanvis are doing things which are otherwise unconventional. For instance, who knew that Haryanvi news could be, hit one day? I do remember for longest time, Haryanvis were trained that, speak good English or speak good Hindi. Do not, refrain from speaking Haryanvi. Haryanvi is not going to take you places. In contrast, you see many young Haryanvis making content in Haryanvi, making videos, music, making comic videos, or making news, or news platforms, and are doing fairly well. And in fact, you'd be surprised that the amount of subscription that they get is drastically more than what a Hindi platform is raking these days. So these are few stories that I'm working on, and definitely there's another society and the social cultural evolution that is happening today. What has transformed Haryana is post 1947 is the Punjabization of the society, and that must be written about. Or another topic could very well be the ruralization of our urban spaces. For instance, Jeend is for the longest time has been a political hub, but although Jeend, the district headquarters in an urban space in the revenue records and in general district administration, you won't be really surprised. I mean, it won't be really surprising for anybody to see that find a buffalo right outside somebody's home in a urban development society. So although a young woman, some Delhiite, would be surprised to see, but they're absolutely fine. So there's this ruralization of urban spaces happening. People still want to have their own buffaloes in the city. You won't find buffaloes hanging on in cities in South Delhi. Or it would be surprising to see somebody in defense colony having their own buffalo right outside their house. So those things are happening in Haryana. So I'd rather enjoy writing about it. Yeah, those are a few stories I'll be happy to work on.
Great. And we move on to our last question. This is going to be from Mr. Vijay Shankar, but I would also like to announce the name of the winner for the wonderful book is Alka Khanna. In fact, Alka's Wi-Fi is not working very well. So she sent me one question for you. So how did you manage time for writing with demands of your professional and personal life? I mean, this is such a well-researched book. How did you find time?
So finding time was tough, of course, with all other professional commitments. But that's the thing, how do you or Dia find time to do these things or these sessions? If you're really motivated to do something about anything, and you're really passionate and convinced that you want to do something about it, forget your sleep patterns, you forget the challenges that come across, and you're so motivated that you just keep on doing it. You find time, you make time
That's
for it.
right.
So that is what happened with me, and I think that is what happens with a lot of people who are driven more by uh, passion, that drive. If you got it, and then of course you do what you have to do in order to do what you want to do. Famous quote. Yeah.
Great. And we wish you all the luck with many more books to come. So we have Mr. Vijay Shankar. He was there in your last session also, and he wants to ask you a question once again. Yes, Vijay.
Good evening, sir. Many congratulations on your new book.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Thank you very much for joining today's conversation as well.
And are you from Hansraj College?
Yes, sir. I'm from Hansraj College.
I too, 2002 batch, history honors.
Great.
So were you a hostler by any chance?
In fact, Hansraj College was the only college to have geology honors.
Yes. Sir, were you a
In
hostler?
our days. No, I was not a hostler. I had got the hostel, but I had declined the seat.
Okay,
I
sir.
had stayed in Permanent Colony and Mukherjee Nagar.
बहुत बढ़िया sir, बहुत बढ़िया. Glad to meet you, sir.
Yes, your question,
So-
please, Vijay.
I'll come to my question. My question is that how do you explain rapid industrialization and agricultural prosperity going hand in hand in Haryana?
Okay. So one, it's not very hand in hand. I mean, agricultural prosperity saw an uptake thanks to Green Revolution. Through our state essentially started producing more of rice and wheat. Other crops essentially slowly took a backseat. The entire Kurukshetra, Karnal, Yamunanagar belt, even lands in the outskirts of Panipat see a lot of rice cultivation. But then other than that, we see a lot of wheat being grown. This essentially started in 60s, 70s, and this Green Revolution was taken, with both, grabbed with both hands by Haryanvis. But that although it was an early starter, and that advantage Haryana took, of course, of late it has diversified, and thanks to this labor of love by the farmers and agriculturists in Haryana, we are seeing a lot of new innovations happen, and agricultural innovations are rather pushed and motivated in Haryana as well. I know people who have kept 1 acre or plot of land just to experiment new crops, just to experiment with what's new in the market, what could potentially sell at a better price. For instance, southern Haryana probably probably around a decade back became very popular for guar seeds, which guar seeds were utilized for fracking in the US. So they found this opportunity as well. Israelis have invested in a fair amount of agricultural innovation as well. So yes, but at the same time, like you pointed out, even industrialization. One thing that worked for Haryana was the fact that it bordered Delhi on 3 sides. So although many Delhi industrialists would prefer to keep their homes in GK, South Delhi, even North Delhi for that matter, but they'd have factory setups right across the border. Even today, many people have some factories, some warehouse, some units in Pataudi or Kharkhoda for that matter, but they prefer living in Delhi. Apart from that, in terms of industrialization, the first waves of industrialization in Haryana happened in 1950s. When Pratap Singh Kero, among other people, invested in a lot of opening of a lot of factories and industries in Faridabad area for that matter. And there were a lot of, the first place where a lot of industrial plotting was done was in Faridabad. However, Faridabad beyond a point did not pick up very well, because one reason people think that it was public led, it was government led. In contrast, Gurgaon was rather a private venture. As late as 2008 or so, Gurgaon was still in revenue record some sort of a village. So that industrialization has been private. But then you see, right after the liberalization in 1991, a lot of money and capital was being pumped into Haryana. And rather it was pumped into the Indian market. Bombay Delhi was naturally attracting all of that wealth. And as a consequence, it would, you know, overflow and get into Haryana. In 21st century, Haryana's land became a great capital, great asset for people to monetize. So you see, many people have turned their agricultural fields into industrial plots or have made industries. That gave a fillip. That had a large trickle down effect. So people got a lot of money. People started different places and giving a tremendous push to industries. And of course, like I said, there have been banyas and there have been, this tremendous power of this business and trading community, which has done well itself. And Punjabis, for that matter, Punjabis who came from Pakistan side, first came to Delhi or Haryana, well settled, and with this tremendous power of this passion and this grit of doing well for themselves and for their families, they found new factories, new industries, just to ensure that they better themselves economically. So all of that has had a great amount of impact. And that is how you see there is a tremendous rural and urban divide also for the longest time in Haryana, where the ruralites are more focused towards agriculture, but then the urban space where there are Banyas, there are Punjabis, there are Brahmins, focusing on more on industrial growth. So as a consequence of this society, the complexity of the society divides, industry has gone very parallel with and successfully at that with agriculture. Yes. I hope I addressed that question very well, sir.
Thank you so much for your answer, and I'm looking forward to read your book. It would be a very interesting read altogether. All the best for your future.
Thank you very
I
much.
must assure you.
ग्रुप पे भी भेजिएगा.
जी जी नहीं बिल्कुल रिव्यू दूंगा मैं. अब तो दूंगा अपने कॉलेज से हैं आप. अब तो देना बनता है.
वैसे भी
All the
देना
best.
बनता था. Thank
वैसे
you,
भी
Arjun, for taking.
तो देना बनता है.
हाँ, ये तो बात पक्का. Thank you, Arjun, for taking your time on this immensely wonderful and engaging conversation about the journey of Haryana. You've clarified a lot of stereotypes and given new insights, and I'm sure it now connects us with Haryana like never before. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me for the 99th interaction that we're holding at Trends. So congratulations to you and Dia, of course. May your tribe continue, may the community get wider and broader and larger, and may we continue to have these fruitful interactions, and see you somewhere down the road.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you, Rupa Publications, for coming out with such a wonderful book, and your cooperation always to us on all the books that we do from this publication. And request everyone to please subscribe and share our YouTube link and Trends Literature Series. Yes.
And do order Land of the Gods, The Story of Haryana by Rupa Publications.
And link we had posted in the chat already, so you'll find it.
Another link. This is a review link. This is a Tribune link. You must post the Amazon link.
Okay. I think, yes, in any case, you'll find it very easily on Amazon and the bookshop. So please do an order and do subscribe to our channel too and share the content. And this video will be posted on the YouTube very shortly. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Good evening.